Hey everyone, round two tonight. Thank you for everyone that tuned into the previous interview with Marty from Iron Temper, and also Tatsutoshi Tattoo from Hawaii. It was really interesting to hear, the crossover from a machine tattooer to a traditional tattooer. So tonight now is going to be a bit of a fun one. It's myself, MJ Forrest from Melbourne, and Dan from Conspiracy Tattoo down in Wagga. We've all got like a theme going on together, how we all know each other. But we'll that. I'm just going to bring MJ in now into the room, and we'll warm him up, and then we will get Dan in. Mate, nice beanie.
Thank you.
Nice. How's your day been?
Pretty uneventful. It's just sort of been sitting around.
Strange to hear that.
Yeah. Who would have thought? No, I'm doing like a trivia night on Sunday, so I've just been writing trivia questions all day.
No, you'll obviously forward me the answers later on.
The cheat sheet? Yeah. We gotta keep you looking good.
Yes. Yeah. Cool. So this is going to just a little bit of a fun one tonight because, Melbourne and Sydney aren't doing much. We all like a little bit of a drink, and it's Friday night, and just some bit more lighthearted stuff. So me, you, and Dan, who's your mentor, are gonna like do a little chat. But just thanks for being involved, and thanks for putting in that really nice comment for Marty from Iron Temper on the previous interview. It was really cool.
I remember like when I first saw people starting to buy stuff from Iron Temper and were posting about it. I'm like, who the fuck is this dude? And I asked around. I can't remember who I asked, and they're like, "Oh, it's this dude called Marty. He's not a tattooer, but he's fucking 100% tattoo. He's in it." And I'm like, "Oh, cool." And I like looked at it, and I bought some stuff, and just like I haven't. I mean, like the couple things that he doesn't sell, I've got elsewhere, but other than that, everything I get through him, and it's actually, putting a face to the name for the first time tonight, it was so nice.
Yeah.
It's like probably like, because I've watched a lot of these Instagram lives that you've done, it's like the most wholesome one,
it's really cool, man.
With Toshi later on, it was.
Yeah, it was a really nice interview. Give us a different perspective, and it was really nice to, to hear a traditional Japanese tattoo artist in Hawaii, like his view on Australian tattooing and Japanese tattooing and neo-trad and all that sort of stuff.
That was awesome. Like seeing dudes like Rusty and Usher getting the props they deserve.
Getting the shout outs. Yeah, it's amazing.
Absolutely.
Amazing. All right, speaking of shout outs, let's bring Dan the Man in from downtown Wagga. If you've got a beanie on in Melbourne, mate, he's probably got a fucking Eskimo suit on. Or he's got that open fireplace burning and he's roasting marshmallows. So Dan!
Hey, how are you?
How are you, buddy?
Good, mate. Yourself?
Daniel.
Nice. You got the aircon cranking?
Hello, mate. Yeah, mate, yeah.
Nice. So I think just to let the viewers know, like, we've all known it of each other for quite a period of time. You guys just sunk a beer in sync like that. It was perfect.
See, that's how it happens.
But our common thread is old school tattooer called Brian Brady. So Brian, I first met Brian when I was living in Amsterdam, like I think early 2000s, and we used to both work at one shop one day a week, but on opposing days. So, there's this other Aussie there. And I'm like, and I knew of Brian from growing up because he was like, a little bit older than me and quite an industry icon. So I left him some Vegemite, right? I said, here you go, I'm sick. And then we spoke, and, we ended up working conventions together over the years. And then when I came back from overseas, I ended up working on the Gold Coast with Brian. And then he ended up coming down to Wagga and opening Conspiracy, which is, Dan, where you come into the picture.
That's it.
And I believe you were a client, and he ended up taking you on. And then, Brian was back and forward to Thailand and moved there full time, and you took over the shop. And I think before that happened, MJ was somewhere on the scene. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think so. I'm bad with that sort of stuff. It
Yeah.
was around that time. Yeah, I think I think he'd started maybe doing the shop stuff just before I
Yeah.
took it over. Just, yeah,
Yeah.
helping on the counter and stuff like that. But I don't think he'd even planned on tattooing or anything at that point.
I think Brian
Yeah.
was
I don't
was
know.
already sort
Maybe
of
he had.
living in Thailand or going back and forth to Thailand. So even though,
Yeah, I think he was still
um,
going backwards and forwards when you started.
yeah,
Yeah.
so even though
Yeah.
Brian still owned it when I first started, it was like, as far as I knew, Dan was my boss, because Brian wasn't there
Yes.
that
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. 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 I'm sure we've all got some quintessential Brian stories.
Yeah.
I might start and just to give the viewers like a little bit of a background, Brian would probably be in his maybe late 50s, early 60s now, but tattooing for like 30 plus years, but from the old school era of just rough as fuck, but an amazing artist and personality.
I'm glad you said that.
An amazing artist, but very progressive. He's such a prolific drawer, prolific painter. Like, he worked in the States back in the day with Brian Everett. He worked in Holland with Marco Brad. He's been around the world a couple of times over, and done his thing. And, he left a big impact on me when I worked with him at Skin Effects. Like, just him and Tony Ranger were some of the ones that were just consistently drawing in between clients. And this is where this good story comes. So in winter, it'd be pretty quiet. We'd sit out the back room drawing, overlooking Cavill Avenue and, putting laser pointers on bouncers' heads and all this sort of stuff and just being rat bags. But Braid would be down drawing. And so his turn came up to get a tattoo, right? And, you look out on the little TV screen, you can see there's this young kid like sitting in the middle of the weight room and it's deathly quiet. No one else is in the shop. And he's like, oh, yeah, what is it? And it's like, oh, yeah, this. And it's like a little bit of Leo's Uluweta Tribe or something like this big. So Braid gets a stencil and walks out into, I knew something good was going to happen. So I went around into the tattoo area by the sliding door to see him coming in. And he's walked out of the room, just kicked the door open and gone, all right, who's getting this piece of shit? Right? And the young kid, it's his first tattoo. He's like, all in an instant second, he's like, oh. And like back in the day when people would sit in chairs and you get the death grip and like just bark, sit still, like amazing. And probably put that tattoo, probably a minimum charge tattoo of maybe $100, probably slammed it on in like 6-7 minutes. Next.
So fast.
That sounds about
so
right.
fast.
How did downtown Cosmopolitan Wagga like warm to Brian's ways of the world?
Yeah, it was a bit of a shock for a few people, I reckon. It took a while for people once sort of people got to know Brian, they're like, oh yeah, cool, that's just the way he is. But instantly it was like, fuck, what's going on here?
Yeah.
There's a great story actually similar to that. We used to have this like pretty churchy sort of lady, older lady, She'd dot her around and Michael got caught up with her too one day. But she used to come past and she'd crack the door and pop her head in. She'd go, you need to get a new business because God says you shouldn't get tattooed. And then she'd shut it and she'd go. And 10 minutes later, she'd come back and she'd go, yeah, God says this isn't good. Leviticus 23:13 says don't mark your body. All this. She'd go away, come back 10 minutes, another, keep doing this for about half an hour. And Brian had been really civil to her. He'd be, yeah, okay, all right, Anyway, he's finally got the shit and she's come back one last time and he's just turned around. He's just gone, look, lady, will you just fuck off? And I've never seen anyone like just move and just go so fast.
Mate, he's a big man. He's tall, mate. He's got presence. And when he goes off, mate, it's like, oh.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, I'll never forget that.
He stayed with me one time. We're in the local hotel in Bondi, the Royal Hotel, on a Saturday night, playing billiards or whatever, getting pissed up. And someone bumped into him at the bar and he just full pushed them away, like, fuck off, cunt, and like full shaped up to him. And I had to go to because I knew the owner quite well. I drink there regularly, like, oh, don't worry, it's my mate, he's from out of town, I'll look after him. I'll keep him in the corner, don't worry about that. And I'm like, what's going on, mate? He goes, fucking cunt spilled beer on me. I'm like, fair enough. It was a sullen t-shirt, you know.
Yeah.
Very volatile.
So
Yes,
many times.
he definitely could be.
I've been on the receiving end of the volatile Brian once or twice,
yeah.
but at the same time, you know, like my parents would come and visit us in Wagga and come into the shop, and you know, Brian was just so sweet and just like so friendly and chatty and stuff. And I think like before, when you were talking about, you know, people being afraid of him and all that sort of stuff, people that hadn't been tattooed by him would be afraid of him. But at the same time, he had a really loyal client base, you know, like so
100%.
many people would go back to him once they realize it's like a little bit of bravado, that old school tattooer sort of thing, you know. But like I think most people found it fucking hilarious when they were getting tattooed by him, you know.
So once you got through that,
Sorry about that.
exterior of him, you know,
totally.
That exterior, once you broke through that, it was like, oh yeah, now I get him. He's, you know, that's just the way he is.
Yeah, and like me apprenticing.
I'm still tattooing people that I knew through Brian because they can't get access to it, you know, and they are very loyal clients. But what people, younger tattooers, you know, probably don't understand is like, you know, he comes from an era where you're literally in the trenches dealing with fuckwits nonstop, all day in, all day out. And it's enough to test the patience of a saint or a monk, you know, and unfortunately, you know, I used to do night shift at Skin Effects with him 5 till midnight or later. And, you know, you're dealing with not the dregs, but, you know, not the best people in society. They're fun and it's a fun time, but it's fucking hard work. You know, like you're sober, they're pissed out of their brain or high or whatever. So I think a lot of old school gurus just had that gruffness.
I think you had to have it sometimes.
Why is he such a fucking grumpy cunt? Like we met Crispy Lennox at a convention once, and I think when Brian worked at Skin Effects, Crispy was the apprentice or like the shop dude or something like that. And we're like, oh, you know our friend.
I think Crispy
Brian
was the guy that gave him the tribal design.
Crispy was the guy that fed him the tribal.
Maybe
it wasn't one of the rosettes he had. No.
Okay.
And we're like, yeah, you know Brian. He goes, oh yeah. He goes, is he still a grumpy cunt? We're like, yeah. But we kind of didn't understand it. But you know, after you've been tattooing like a while, like Dan's been tattooing twice as long as I have, you know, like I think like part of us sort of understand it. You know, we can sort of see why he was the way he was, like when you're dealing with that kind of
and especially like, you know, the street shop, it's the front line. You know, people come in and, you know, that's where no doubt later on we're going to elaborate for our great stories.
Hopefully.
Absolutely. There was one time with Brian.
Over to you, MJ.
There was one time with Brian, and I was just kind of pushing his buttons a bit. Kyle, who works there now as well, you know, we both just like to kind of just sort of poke the bear a little bit, you know, every now and then. And Brian was always a really good sport, so I didn't think anything that I was doing was out of line, you know, compared to what we'd normally fucking do to him. And one day, it was back when like your mum jokes were real big, you know, where it was just like someone would say something and then you do your mum, and then you repeat what they said. I can't remember what he said, but I just your mummed him, and he just got real fucking quiet.
Yeah.
And I think at that moment I was like, oh, I think I fucked up here. And then
I believe he asked you what you said first.
What
did you say? And he went, oh, nothing.
And then like true professional, Brian just waited until the end of the day. All the customers had gone home, and then he stands in sort of like the hallway, so I couldn't really go past. And he's like, Michael Forrest, if you ever say anything about my mother ever again, you better have fucking ambulance cover, cunt, because you're going to need it. And I was like, holy fuck, I'm going to get bashed by Brian. Meanwhile, Dan's just standing like a meter away, just like watching this fucking, just like almost like
trying to get his phone out to record it.
I'm just thinking, what the fuck am I going to do? I can't help anyone. Michael, that's it.
Dan's like, oh, Michael's going to die today.
But I think that's a clear insight into generational differences. You know, in Brian's era, you wouldn't insult somebody's mum. Where
No,
in more, you know, different eras, it's you know, would be the normal, like, you know, that sort of thing. And you know, another thing that just popped into my head about Brian as well is from the old school, like beautiful handwriting.
Yeah.
absolutely. I feel like, Dan, that's where you got your script from, was from Brian.
Yeah.
And just like watching him, it just busted out, you know, like the most amazing script in 30 seconds, you know. And
Yeah,
it
I
just
got
sort of,
these off him from, I think, 2002, New of Nooit, because I lived in Holland. Yeah. And here, Pluck the Dog. Pluck the Dog is Seize the Day, and New of Nooit is Now or Never. So I was like, all right, I want to get this. Who better to get it from? A guy I met in Holland and worked with over there. So yeah, but beautiful. He was doing script before script was even on the radar.
Yeah. Brian set that prerequisite for the shop, you know, like people would come to Conspiracy and get names or, you know, Bible verses, whatever. And then as a result, Dan had to learn it. Yeah. As a result of Dan having to learn it, I had to learn it, and it took me forever, and I'm still not good at it.
Sorry to interrupt. This is like a friend of mine keeps asking, like he's an avid car collector, and he's always asking, like, Dan, down your way, there's got to be a VL Turbo for sale, or maybe one of your customers have got one. So can you keep an ear out for it, please?
Probably got them.
Because down there, you know, you're still in the era where you can get that barn find.
Yeah, there's probably definitely a few around.
Yeah. So I'm giving you a shout out, Dennis. I'm waiting, mate. We're on the same page. So, but Brian liked these cars, didn't he? He had all sorts of like hot rods and motorbikes.
Yeah.
But again,
turn them over pretty quick.
Product of that era.
Yeah. I used to come in like I'd knock off on a Saturday and then come back in on a Tuesday. I go, oh, what did you get up to? He said, oh yeah, bought another bike on the weekend. It's like, all right, what'd you get? And then he'd have that for about 3 months, and oh, where's your bike? Oh, I got rid of it. I got a car now. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Loved it.
Yeah. Crazy stuff. Crazy stuff.
Yeah.
All right. So what other, before we move on to some craziness, like what other, like, you know, Brian stories have you guys got? Like for me, he's definitely someone that had a big impact on my career. Like I met him later in life tattooing, probably tattooing already 10 years. And he's someone that I'd seen in magazines. And for me to meet him, you know, overseas in Amsterdam was like, oh, wow. So he was like one of my first connections with the old school Aussie guys. And, you know, and I'm sure he had something to do with putting in a good word for me, with getting a job at Skin Effects when I came back and that sort of thing. And yeah, he's been a very good influence, and no doubt on you too as well.
It was the same for you, wasn't it, Dan? Through the magazines.
100%. Like when I was sort of looking to get a sleeve done, back in the day, you know, magazines, that's all you had. So I used to, be hanging out for the latest issues and all that. And I'd collected, you know, pictures of, you know, the ones that the favorite artists and all that kind of thing over the time. And I'd had one of Brian's tattoos that was, you know, one of my favorites. And I didn't even realize who Brian was at that point. And the new guy came to town, went and talked to him, thought, oh yeah, he seems like the guy that's going to do the job. And I went home and just randomly flicking through the pictures that, you know, that I'd saved. And I looked at this picture, I went, oh fuck, Brian Brady, like that's the guy that I was just talking to. Right, done. I'm getting it, you know, and that's where it started for me. It was just a weird coincidence that he just happened to turn up in Wagga. So
like you were saying before, Reese, you know, like back in the day, those old school tattooers, it wasn't that common for people to go traveling and all that sort of stuff. Pre-internet, all that sort of stuff. You know, like you met Brian in Holland. Brian tattooed in, pretty sure in Antwerp.
Wait, there was no Instagram then. I didn't even have a Facebook page.
No, nothing. You know, and Brian started in what, Griffith or something, Dan?
Yep. He had a shop. He tattooed around, but then he came back, did a shop in Griffith. MIA tattoo with Mr. Horsepower on the business card, smoking a big cigar. And then I think he apprenticed Bo and then sold the shop to Bo. and
That's
went
right.
off again.
Yeah, then I think
Yeah.
he
But
went
yeah,
to
he spent
Brisbane
a lot
after
of
that.
time in America, a lot
He was
multiple
in
trips to Europe.
Albuquerque, all that sort of stuff. You know,
Yeah.
like Brian was like that first dude that I met that had traveled the world and worked. You know, like guest spotted around the world and all that sort of stuff. And when I was apprenticing, I was like a little bit scared of him, but at the same time, I was like, "Fuck,
In
Brian's
awe,
done that. Brian's
fascinated.
done the shit that I
Definitely.
want to do." You know, like if Brian says something, I'm going to take it on board because you know he obviously knows what he's talking about because he's done it. You know,
Yep.
so it was.
And 100%. And when you touch on that, a guest spot, it's not like he just went and did 2 days in a shop or a
Nah,
week. He was
months.
there for like months or years.
Yeah, I remember it was really intimidating because he'd done all that traveling and stuff. And as I said, I used to pore over the magazines, and that's obviously you knew all the big namers. And Brian would be just like, "Oh yeah, you know, I work with that guy, and yeah, I know that, and and all this." It was like, holy fuck, you know, like this is a bit intimidating.
Totally, but also
good
as
as well.
it would just come up in general conversation. It's not like he's dropping names every
not.
second he gets.
I'd usually bring stuff up, and you go, "Oh yeah, you know, and I met that guy, you know, yeah." So it's
Or I've got one of his machines in storage or whatever, you know, like the fucking his storage container was just a treasure trove of incredible stuff.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing stuff, amazing stuff. All right, so everyone, that's our common denominator, all of us stuff. But then also we were both on MJ's True Love podcast, so which was really cool. So if anyone's out there and you've got nothing to do, because like not many of us do, you can check it all out. So I thought one of the things we can talk about is funny stories, is kind of like fainting. We've all got some fainting stories. So I'll go first. Like I remember, you know, like when I started in a tattoo shop, everyone's getting tattooed in a chair. Like, so, you know, there's no one's laying down, all this sort of stuff. There's a lot more spontaneous tattooing. So people were a lot more nervous and they'd go down a lot more. And, you know, I've never had an induction course on how to deal with someone who's fainted. So it was almost like you just observe and adapt.
Oh, shit.
Right? And I've worked with people where they would start to pass out, like start to get all clammy and sweaty and go, "Oh, I missed it. I feel a bit funny." And some dude would just grab the back of their neck and push their head down between their legs. And then they're fighting to get back up. And I'm like, oh, wow, okay. I don't have the arms for that, obviously, but, you know, I'll have to work something out. I'm like, why the fuck would you do that? And they're like, because it makes them fight. It makes them, like, fight back. And, you know, the adrenaline rush. And you know, that was one way. But, yeah, I remember one time a guy passing out and just thinking, and I used to always talk to him, go, "Hey, mate, you're all right. You're in a tattoo shop, you know, slumped over on the side like this. You know, you're all right. You're in a tattoo shop. You're getting a tattoo. You passed out." But then thinking, like, this is going on a bit long now. Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, I got no mobile phone. Like, I definitely don't want to ring the cops. I don't want to ring the ambulance. You know, my boss is going to go off at me. Like, what do I do? like, and, you know, you sit there and you wait, and then you start thinking, fuck, imagine this prick's going to die, you know, and all the rest of it. But just crazy stuff. You know? But I remember going back to Skin Effects, like one summer when Brian was working there and I'm working there with Benji. Benji had just started, right? And the aircon had broken, so everyone's sweating like a pig. So I used to work next to Benji, and the summer got that bad. I took my video recorder in to like record people passing out because it was that common.
Not a little discreet iPhone either. It was like the big thing.
Yeah. It was like a 25-second operation to get the lens cap off, turn it on, and power it up. Like, you know, you could hear it charging like the flux capacitor. You know,
I think I remember Brian telling me stories about you guys having competitions to see who could get the most to pass out.
Pretty much, yeah. And Brian, you get to an armband about here, and the guy would be like panicking, and you'd be like, "Oh yeah, mate, it fucking really sucks under there. How about we just cut it short here, and I'll knock like $20 off the price." You know, and like, so when your arm's down, you can still see it all the way around. Blah blah. But yeah, so this guy's like going, "Oh, I think I'm going to pass out, mate." I got the video recorder ready, and Benji's like, "Oh, just get up, mate, and walk around." So I'm like filming him, and then it's like this. Like
Oh,
amazing.
man.
Yeah,
All
bro,
right,
I
MJ,
remember.
you're one.
Yeah,
Dan, you've
Next.
had
You there.
so many pass outs because at conspiracy, I don't know if you still do, but you had the chairs as well. So like
Yeah,
there is
yeah,
the
we-
option for people to sit
not
up
really
when getting
anymore. Yeah,
I know.
definitely. Yeah, I wouldn't say I've had heaps, but you know, you've fair share. Everyone gets them every so often. By now you recognise the signs a bit. Usually the first sign's like, can I get a drink? And it's like, yeah, you're all right. And then because you're looking at the tattoo, you're not looking at their face, and you look up at their face, they're just white. It's like, oh fuck, all right, here we go. But yeah,
Wherever
I
at the
don't
water,
know. I've
wherever
had
at the
I've
water
had a
cooler
few.
and they've lost hearing.
Yeah. I've had a few that really sort of stick in my mind, but I don't know. I think it's a toss up between a couple that I could tell a story about, but I think the best one was it was really early in the days of me tattooing, and I was stuck in the shop by myself. I was tattooing like a mate, so it was like, you know, it was that early sort of piece, you know, like, and I think I was doing a tattoo that it was probably beyond me, but you know, my mate had asked me to do it. It's like, fuck, all right, I'll give it a go. So here I am, and he told me, he's like, oh, look, I pass out a bit. And I'm like, yeah, you'll be right, you know, and I'd never had anyone pass out before. So he is in the barber's chair. So I started out real cautious. I'd do a line, just a little one. I'd go, yeah, you're right. And he goes, yeah, I'm right. Do another one, you're right. Yeah, a few more, you know. Half an hour gone, he's fine. I'm like, all right, I'd forgotten about it. And I'm fucking going away. And next minute, he's just grabbed his Coke and he's taken a drink of it, sat it back in his lap. And then next minute, his head's just flopped over. The Coke's fucking hit the floor. And I've just like looked up and he's just, like out like this. So, and he's starting to slide out of the chair as well. So I'm trying to hold onto him with one hand. I'm trying to get my machine and put it down with the other one. There's just Coke going everywhere and he's out to it. And he's very much like you said before, like he'd been out for quite a while by the time, like, and I'm starting to get a bit panicked because I didn't know what to do either. I'm like, fuck, is he going to die? What do I do? And I'm sort of like right in his face, like, are you all right? Are you okay? And he's like, his eyes have just sprung open like in horror. And I'm like right there. And he's just like, fuck, you know, and I'm like, it's all right, you know, you're getting a tattoo. He's like, oh, okay, yeah, shit, all right. Let him recover. And after about, I reckon, 20 minutes or so, he's sort of come good. And we started up again. And he's going, oh, man, when I was out, I was like I was asleep and I was just having the best dream. And then all I know is you've woken me up and you're like fucking right in my face. The first thing I thought was, what the fuck are you doing in my bedroom? And I'm like, oh man, no wonder you look so horrified with me standing right over you.
Dan,
it's scary. It's scary.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, Dan, you were talking when doing lines and he dropped his Coke. You were talking about tattooing and beverages.
Yeah, that didn't sound good, did it?
No.
Tattoo lines, Coca-Cola.
You just doubled down.
Man,
he done so many lines.
It was only really tame.
Here we go. Here's a good one. So Dan Rhodes' tattoo has just put in 100 points. So Dan is the son of Jeff Rhodes, an old King's Cross tattooer. So at Sleeve Masters in the heyday, they used to have a point system, right? Of when people would pass out. Like Dan might be able to correct me here, but I think the ultimate was maybe 100 or 1,000. But if say it was 10 points for someone to pass out, it was 20 points for someone to pass out and piss themselves. It was 50 points for someone to pass out and shit themselves. And the guys actually used to keep a tally, right?
That's amazing.
And I'm pretty sure you got 100 points if you killed someone, right? During the tattoo, right? So years later, Greg, when Dean Reardon was doing his apprenticeship with Greg's tattooed this girl and she's gone down for the count, and I've got to modify this story for legal reasons, but an ambulance had to be called, right? So Greg, rest his soul, was jumping up and down going, I've done it. I've finally done it. I've got to call Jeff. Like clarified by multiple people. Yeah, I think I've got Greg on video, like clarifying that as well.
I think I remember Benji telling me once up. I'm pretty sure it might have been at Skin Effects or whatever in the heyday of the pass out Olympics. That he had someone pass out, they've dropped and they'd smacked their head like
I got it on video.
where the floor
on the
joins
edge
the wall.
of yeah.
And he said blood just started pooling, and his first reaction wasn't, "Oh fuck, I got to help him." His first reaction was, "Oh, they're dead. They're like, You don't survive.
Yeah.
They're dead."
Yeah.
Well,
they'll find
before the days of toolboxes, right? Most tattoo shops, to try and be classy, you would have like a kitchen cabinet maker come in and build your work bays. So the corner of that workstation, like you had your little sliding doors underneath and your bin in there, and you turn around, have your kitchen drawers, that sort of thing, a sink behind you. So yeah, that was a corner of a kitchen cabinet basically. And yeah, I like I said, I got that on video somewhere. I'll have to dig it out.
Yeah,
You know?
That's awesome.
It was wild. I remember one schoolies, I had this young guy, I tattooed this young guy on his arm, and he passed out, the poor fella. And I was always like the good guy tattooer, you know, like not destroying people like you were encouraged to. So he's passed out and gone down, and the poor dude like pissed himself, right? And so that he had a cup of water and he's knocked it over and he's come to and he's still slumped out in the chair like this. I'm like, "Oh, just sit up, mate. Just sit up." He's like, no, it's all right. I had fuck all to do. So I finished it off. And he's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I dropped my water." And in my mind, I'm thinking, water ain't yellow, mate, but, you know, we'll roll with it. Like, the waiting room's packed full of schoolies, right? So, and then gets up and just sort of waddles out, you know, with
Squish.
full. So, yeah, but it was, it's like, what do you do? You know, what do you do? Next.
Carry on.
I may have a pass out that can beat it.
Please, do
tell.
tell.
It was when I was at Conspiracy, and it was the very end of the day. I think Kyle and Dan just sort of, you know, packing up for the day. We used to have this tradition, end of the day, we'd crack a beer and we'd all just sit around and just sort of, you know, decompress and just sort of like go over the day's events and just have a beer together and go home. I'd cracked their beers. It's 5 o'clock. I'm doing this tiny little arrow tattoo on a girl's wrist. And she's sitting, I'm like, well, it's going to take 5 minutes. I'll get her to sit on a stool and just have an armrest. I'm not going to set up the whole, you know, shebang, the big chair, all that sort of stuff. I had one line left to go. It's probably 3 millimeters long. And then she said something and I look up and she's gone white and her eyes have rolled back into her head.
Yeah.
And she starts to fall and I throw my machine down and I sort of like lean over the armrest and I grab her and stop her from falling in case she does a Benji and splits her head open. I've got her there and I'm kind of just stuck because there's an armrest between me and her, all sorts of shit. And I'm like, Kyle, can you come fucking help me with this, please? And so Kyle comes out, he grabs her legs, we do all the, you know, the protocol when someone faints. And her mate was with her and her mate's like, oh, normally when this happens, she has a fit. And I'm like, what do you mean normally when this happens? And then right on cue,
I wanted to bring that up. That's the crazy one when someone fits.
Yeah, I've had that too.
She starts having a fit, and I've never. She wasn't doing that, but it was definitely like convulsing, and I'd never had that before. I didn't even know it was a thing.
Yeah,
That's happening. It's terrifying, and she farts.
Yeah,
on
it's
Kyle.
incredibly confronting.
Yes.
Yeah. She farts in the moment. Me and Kyle are like, fucking, we're in medic mode. You know, this isn't funny. It's hilarious now.
Yeah.
But so we lay down, we go through everything. And then she goes, oh, sorry, I didn't think it would happen with a tattoo. And I'm like, you know, you signed a consent form out there. It says, are you prone to fainting? If you're prone to fainting, I would have laid you down, but I wouldn't have made you sit on a stool. She goes, I just didn't think it would happen with a tattoo. And then she goes, yeah, one time my mum brushed my hair too hard and it happened.
I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Haven't lived at home for a while.
Dude, mental.
Yeah.
That stuff was so scary. And when you're not used to it, and, you know, like, you know, we'd have like cans of Coke in the fridge to give people, a bit of sugar and stuff. And like I had a girl pass out once and she was on the larger side and I was at work by myself. And she passed out and she had a friend there and I was trying to catch her and I was struggling. And then I said to a friend, I'm like, run across the road to the fish and chip shop and get her like a soft drink. You know, she needs sugar. And she comes back with a fucking Coke Zero, the one soft drink with no sugar. I'm like, you serious?
She put too much thought into it. Way too much thought into it.
Yeah. Well, she's trying to lose weight. Yeah, I'll get a Coke Zero.
Yeah. But the fitting one is quite. I had that written down. I've had that a few times when people fit, and it's actually fucking scary as fuck. You don't know what to do because they start to froth at the mouth, the tongue's going back. And one time earlier, I tried to stick my hand in someone's mouth, and I go, "Hey, don't do that. You're gonna fucking bite your finger off." Oh, okay. Yeah. You know, and then you've got to cradle their head if they're going to start thrashing around. It's it's crazy. But thankfully now. Sorry, go.
Like when you do like first aid, you know, you're told on the side, you know, clear the airway, all that sort of stuff. You sort of encouraged to make sure that their airway is clear. So like putting your hand in their mouth to make sure that they're not swallowing their tongue or anything else, you know, that's in the moment you think that's the right thing to do. And I think that's like what you've been told to do and all sorts of stuff, but you open yourself up to getting bitten.
Basically. Yeah, it's crazy. All of this has brought stuff back to my mind. Like I've had people that would just pass out while the stencil's going on, you know, and drop and hit the floor. That's not uncommon to hear as well.
Who would that
imagine doing that?
What would happen? That happened to Dan at a convention.
We've got to change the names to protect the guilty.
No, it didn't happen. I didn't pass out, but I was getting the stencil put on. And I was like, fuck, I feel real hot. I don't know. I'm feeling a bit weird. And I just literally seen some poor guy splayed out on the floor at the convention around the corner. And I was like, I think that put the wind up me. I'm like, fuck, I hope that's not me. Anyway, so I was getting the stencil put on and I started feeling real hot. And I'm like, oh, fuck, I feel a bit hot.
Kind of swaying.
I think, shit, this isn't good. And the dude that was tattooing me goes, are you all right? And I go, no, I don't know. I don't know if I am. And he goes, well, just sit down. We'll get you a drink. And I'm like, yeah, cool. So I got a Coke or something with some sugar and I was fine. But I was like, fuck yeah, I could have been that guy.
Lucky you didn't go for a walk.
Oh, mate, I would have been out.
But that's also the thing. It's like you don't think you're prone to fainting, and then you know something like that. You know, like out of nowhere.
People like heaps and never had a problem, and then one day they'll come in and they'll go out. You know, they're the ones that get you because you don't expect it.
I remember. I think some of my best ones when I was working in London. I was working in this real small street shop with like 2 bays, and it was literally the size of a bathroom, right? And I used to do body piercing back in the day. So I pierced this. There's a bunch of young American girls come in, or blah, 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 you know, or you got the chat, having fun, blah, blah. So I pierced 3 of their belly buttons. And then I did the last one. And I pierced the last one. She passed out. And then it was like dominoes. They all looked at her. The next one fainted.
Amazing.
Then the next one looked, and the next one looked. And I had like 4 girls like wiped out on
wow.
I was like,
how many points for that?
Oh, mate, I don't know. I definitely need a medal. You know,
that's got to be worth
at that shop as well. I remember tattooing this chick on her arm. I've got the photo somewhere. I did like rock on her arm, and she was anemic, right? So I started tattooing her. She passed out like 8 times throughout the process, and I'm like, I can't carry on doing this. And she's like, no, you have to. You know, and it was literally I would do the K, the one line down of the K. Bang down, wait for her to get up again. All right, that K, and then the last one, and down again. Like
that was one of the other stories that I was thinking about saying. It was the same thing. This guy just kept going out, and I'd give him 10 minutes to get back better. I'd do one bit, and it was just out like a light again. And I was thinking, I don't think I'm ever going to get this done. So I ended up just having to like lay him down, like I was tattooing up on his shoulder, you know, which. It wasn't working for me, but I just thought, there's no way. I've just got to keep the blood in his head or he's just going to keep going out. And it worked.
Shows your level of professionalism.
We got it done.
Like Cliff Clayton that I used to work for, he's got a great Greg Ardron story. Like one time he came down to the cross to meet Greg. He met him, but he's back in the cross. He's come on down. Greg's tattooing this guy, and Cliff walks in, and Greg's like, oh, hey, Cliff, how are you, mate? Blah, blah, blah. And the guy goes down. So Greg follows him to the floor, finishes the tattoo off, puts some Vaso on it and slaps a bandage on it and like leaves in there, rips the glove. Hey, Cliff, how you doing, mate? Blah, blah, blah. You know, like it was nothing, you know.
Perfect.
But thankfully these days, and people that are viewing, these are obviously the horror stories, but the upside of fainting is, you know, these days you're laying down, but also when you when you faint or you have a moment or whatever, when you come back, you're generally good to go. Like I've found 98, 99% of the time, people are just ready to roll. You know, I think the adrenaline kicks in or something and, you know, off you go. And it's like, oh, it didn't even happen. You know,
I've only ever had that one guy that just kept going out. That was the only time in all the years. Yeah. So
I've just remembered another one. And it was like when I first moved to Melbourne, I had my first week, I got I got just it's the most bizarre week in my entire career.
Baptism
was
of
my
fire?
first week at a new shop, baptism of fire, starting at Man's Ruin in St Kilda. I had this couple come in that were from overseas, and the boyfriend wanted a tattoo, but he didn't speak English, so his girlfriend was, you know, speaking on his behalf. I'm like, yeah, that's cool, whatever. And she was a bit of a nightmare, you know, the whole stand over your shoulder while you're drawing it, telling you to change this, change this, change this. The whole, you're drawing the simplest thing. I think it was her initials, but I drew it like 10 times and make this line a tiny bit longer, all that sort of shit. Anyway, I started getting the feeling that she was a little bit overbearing. And the guy came out and then she's like, can I come out too? And I'm like, nah, sorry, you got to stay out there in the waiting area. You know, if you're not getting tattooed, you're not out on the floor. And he sits down and he is trembling. He is nervous as fuck. It's his first tattoo. It was a couple of initials up there. And I sort of said to him, I'm like, if you don't want to get this, you don't have to. Like, you know, I'll come up with an excuse or whatever, you know, like I can get you out of this. If you don't want this, if she's making you get this tattoo and you don't want it, I'll get you out of it. Like, don't feel like you have to get it. He's like, no, it's good. And I'm like, oh, this dude does speak English. Like, he's fine. He was just so terrified that his girlfriend was speaking on his behalf and sort of, you know, steering the ship. And I almost finished it and he passed out. And then we, you know, normal pass out protocol, got up and stuff. And she just burst through the gate, ran out onto the shop floor, cradled him, you know, like it was fucking Mary and the Stations of the Cross, you know,
baby
fucking
Jesus.
Holding baby Jesus, just holding, you know, like that. And then starts just like force feeding him like San Pellegrino sparkling water and then just like feeding him a banana. And he was so feebly eating the banana. He was just
Oh.
And I was like, what the fuck is going on here?
Okay. The question that comes straight to my mind, do you have a photo of this?
No, I just wanted to be over and done with.
Far more professional than I am.
That's disappointing.
Oh, man. And then, you know, and then like he went down mid-line. So there was a little wobble in the line. It could have been a lot worse. And she was like emailing the shop demanding like a refund, all sorts of shit. And we're like, your boy passed out mid-line. Like, that's on him. Like, there's nothing I can do about that.
And it's crazy. And in all honesty, I've just seen a few comments come through of, you know, it is a serious thing that we're talking about, but we're trying to make something lighthearted. And, you know, none of us are medical practitioners. Like I mentioned that, you know, you can't, I said you swallow their tongue, but you can't, they can bite it. But, you know, let's bring tattooing into 2021. Like, maybe it's not a bad thing if a lot of people that work in shops do get some sort of basic medical training on how to deal with something, especially in, you know, New South Wales and Queensland. Like, we've got this license system, which is basically bullshit. It just says that you don't have a criminal history. There's no actual, maybe Queensland does. There's no health compliance to it, but, you know, we should,
Queensland does,
maybe there needs to be a health and safety person on it. So, you know, even though we're having a joke here and we're all this stuff, we're because literally we're traumatized from it. It's not something we want to happen. So we're making light, and you go home and you actually fucking freak out and go, fuck, man, imagine that person left today, you know. So But now I'll go back to another crazy story. Like this shop in London on a busy Saturday morning, this young guy got his nipple pierced, right, and he passed out, right? So we sat him in a waiting room. I've told this story before. My legal team's approved it. So we've sat him in a waiting room, and it's so busy, right? And my boss comes in. He's like a fucking full East End, West Ham, like footy thug, right? He's like, oi, what's that cunt doing in the waiting room? And we're like, oh, he just got his nipple pierced and passed out. He's like, how long's he been there? And I've gone, oh, I don't know, about 15 minutes. He's like, what the fuck? He's going, boy. He used to call me boy, right? He's like, boy. And the manager, Jez, boy and Jez, pick that fucker up and move him around a corner. So we literally had to go and pick him up in a packed waiting room and move him around to a corner to a cafe and put him in a chair. And then I had to go straight back to work and tattoo.
Full weekend at Bernie's. Weekend at Bernie's, Sonny's newspaper.
Crazy stuff.
I've got a question for you, Reese. So, like, you've obviously, worked Amsterdam, Gold Coast. You started in Melbourne, and Camden, London. Like, out of the different places you've worked, which one do you think was the craziest for, like, consistently the most gnarly shit happening?
Very fortunate. They all had their own special sorts of magic. Like Melbourne growing up, I tattooed for 5 years in Melbourne before I went overseas. And, I come from a different generation where it was normal. Things were just wild and you just accepted it. That's the way it was. And you reveled in it. And it was exciting. Like I never wanted to not be at the tattoo shop because I was scared I'd miss out on something crazy, So, Melbourne had its own special flavor of stuff. Then I went to London and, working in that shop, all those people passing out. Amsterdam, I was there for 2 years. That had its craziness. There I ended up tattooing this guy, Rob. I did a Glock on him. I did a fucking hand grenade on him. All these crazy tattoos. He'd just been out of prison. He was a cool dude, right? But he was a pimp. So he used to bring in all these hookers and I would tattoo on their asses like a brand, 100% bitch. So it's just wild. But it was normal. And at that shop as well, like, it was normal for people to, like, drink beers while they're getting tattooed. In Holland at that time, you could go to a nightclub at 15 and drink beer. You just couldn't drink spirits, My boss was a mad cokehead at the time, so dudes are doing lines all the time. They'd give it to me, and I'll be like, oh, no, it's okay. And I'd just, like, he'd scrape them over near, like, a work corner, and I'll go at the end of the day, I'll see you later, mate, see you, Dennis. And he'd go, oh, they're for me, aren't they, Skip? I'm like, yeah, of course they are, But it was great. Like, I remember this chick come in one day. She must have been on fucking mushies or acid, right? And a working girl as well. And I remember him. It was quiet in winter, so he just had the gift of the gab, and he would just fuck with people. So he made her walk around the waiting room with a box of gloves, balancing it on her head. And all she could say was, what have I got to do to make you love me? Which was the words from some song. So after a couple of hours of this insanity, we deciphered that she'd split up with her boyfriend or customer or something. And this was her favorite song. And she wanted to get it tattooed on. And he's going to me, go on, mate, you do it. And I'm like, I can't do that. Like, I can't do that, mate. She's fucking obviously being like tripping off her brain, mate. Like, and then like my shift ended. I'm like, all right, see you later. And she's still there. And I come in the next day and I go, so you did the tattoo, didn't you? He's going, yeah, fuck yeah. Just crazy shit, man. But it was great. But Gold Coast was good as well. Like Gold Coast was probably tamer than the other three. But, do a night shift there. Indie schoolies, but, it was, we'd go to the strip clubs every night after work pretty much because it was just the normal thing to do. You finish at 12 or later, you're not going to go home. And, internet was only, not many people, no one had an iPad or a laptop. Not many people even had a home computer. So, no one had, like, you had a mobile phone, but there was no picture messaging or any of that stuff. So, we'll just go to the strip club because he knows our boss. We get him for free. Have a couple of drinks and wind down and go home. So, but yeah, it was all, they've all got various levels of insanity.
Dan, what do you remember about me doing an edible at work?
My God.
The productivity.
We'd had a flash day.
Nope.
We had a flash day, massive day. And Michael thought it was a good idea to get these fucking cookies. And he's like, we're like, oh, have you ever fucking had edibles before? He's like, nah. And we're like, well, fucking don't have too much of it. Like, he's finished his day. He finished a little bit early, and I think, was it just me? I can't remember. Anyway, I was still tattooing.
You and Brian.
Yeah, I was still tattooing, and Michael had finished, so he's like, fuck it. I'm going to get out and have a beer, and I might have this fucking cookie. And everyone's telling him, don't fucking have the whole thing. Just have a half of one. He's like, nah, fuck, whatever, you know. So I think he ended up having about 3/4 of this thing. And the guy that, you know, we got him off, he was like, yeah, these are pretty good. So, yeah, be a bit careful with them. So anyway, about half an hour later, I suppose, I've finished my job and I've come out there and Michael's just sitting like slumped in the fucking chair, just white as a fucking sheet. And I've just gone, what have you done? He's just like, oh. And the next day, I was asking him about it and he said, yeah, I was just sitting there and I was running the tongue around in my mouth and every single tooth tasted different. And I'm like, dude, you were just
yeah.
And then they all drag me. They all drag me to a fucking bar as well. So I'm just having a meltdown at this fucking bar afterwards.
And the other night, I googled friggin' the tattoo shop, and it came up with one of those 3 best fucking shops thing. And our shop, there's 2 shops here, so clearly we're on there. And the photo they've picked was me, Brian, and Michael the night of the fucking flash day, and Michael's just fucked, just there, fucking eyes. And that's the picture.
He worked hard that day.
It's amazing.
The worst photo of all time is what they advertised the shop with.
Yeah, we're losing customers because of that.
Why is this cunt melting?
Yeah.
Well, you've seen that old Robert Crumb cartoon of the guy, it's like stoned and there's all the various stages of him like happy and then just melting into his hands.
That's it.
There was no happiness.
Very, yeah.
Michael was just the end one. Yeah.
Straight to
amazing.
It. Jesus.
All right, so let's talk about something a little bit more positive rather than people fainting and that sort of thing. Let's talk about like the craziest tattoos, some of the craziest tattoos you've ever done. Like for me, I've kind of got a top 5 because you end up doing that many of them and they all sort of come into a blur. So I'm going to start off with you, MJ, because I need to take a toilet break and then before I faint
100%.
And then I'm going to be back. So you roll with it.
Yeah, I think a lot of the 100%. A lot of the have fun. A lot of the craziest sort of tattoos are actually on our colleague, Mr. Kyle Pearson. I think we did. Someone's probably going to get mad in the comments. I did a coat hanger abortion tattoo on him. He wanted a bleeding coat hanger on his foot that said "Survivor." That's definitely up there. That's pretty.
About that one.
That's pretty minging. That's up there.
Yeah.
I think other things, Dan. It's not so much the subject matter, but it was the context in which they got it. There was a couple that came into conspiracy, and they'd been together for weeks. You know, like not that long. And they wanted each other's names on them, and we both tried to talk them out of getting each other's names, and they were insistent. And you had to tattoo the lady. I use that word very loosely, and she wanted her ex's name covered up with the rose, and then the new boyfriend's name on the forearm, like massive.
Big.
And it was like
whole forearm.
yeah. I can't remember. It was like Darren or something. It was massive on the arm.
Remember.
And then I had to tattoo him with her name across his shoulder blades. And I tried talking him out of it. I'm like, look, man, like if you're gonna get it small, get it somewhere that's gonna be easy to cover. Like this, trust me. he's like, no, we're in love. And I'm like, fuck it. All right. And I did her name across his shoulder blades. And they were stoked. They were happy. They left. And 2 years later, he came in. And he came in with a plastic shopping bag full of, like, there was a pair of shoes in it, some clothes, and it was just weird that it was thrown into a shopping bag.
Done well
And
for
he's
himself.
like,
And a pair of brand new sneakers he was wearing. Don't forget that.
brand new. And he was
KT26s.
sort of like,
Something like that.
and he's like, I don't, the old Dunlops. He's like, I don't know if you remember, I came in a couple of years ago and I got my girlfriend's name across my shoulders. I'm like, I think so. And I'm like, did we give you a lot of shit and tell you to not do it? And he goes, yeah, you did. You tried really hard to talk me out of it and I just wouldn't listen. And I'm like, right. And he goes, do you reckon you can cover it? I'm like, do you remember what I said to you when you got it? And he goes, oh, it's going to be impossible to cover. I'm like, it is still impossible to cover, bud.
Like, oh, the look at that plastic bag.
You missed the best bit about that was, like, the plastic bag was because he'd literally come directly from jail,
that day,
jumped on the train from Journey, headed to Wagga, straight to the tattoo shop to get the tattoo, or, well, hopefully get it covered up. He ended up getting something else. And we go, oh, yeah, what have you been doing? He said, yeah, I just got out of jail. Been in jail because of her. And I'm like, love story.
Because of that bitch. And I'm like, I'm not going to ask
I
any more fucking questions.
but
yeah.
That was a pretty good one.
Real intense. But I mean, like, where the shop was, you know, we were closest to the train station. So when dudes would get out of jail, we would be the first tattoo shop they'd come across, you know. And Dan and I tattooed a bunch of people day out of jail or the day before they went to jail, all sorts of stuff. I was pretty sheltered when I started working at Conspiracy. You know, I had a pretty sheltered childhood and all that sort of stuff. So my first sort of exposure to some gnarliness was through Conspiracy, was through these sort of characters, you know.
And, mate, the tattoo shop is the university of life.
Yeah, Dan's just like, you know, their money's the same color as anyone else's, you know, like. You're in a tattoo shop, mate. You're not at a daycare. You're going to tattoo all walks of life in here. And it was sort of a big wake-up call. And you're there shit scared for the first few, and then you realise it's like, no, it's all right. It's not too bad. They've just got good stories.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
You learn to talk to a lot of different people. You know, that's...
Totally.
You got to have that rapport with all different levels of people. Yeah.
And I'm sure you guys are the same. Like, you know, once you get into it, for quite a few years. Me personally, that's part of it that I love the most these days. Of like, you know, oh, what do you do? Like, oh, I'm this, that, the other. Oh, okay, cool. Like when I was younger, I'd be like, you're a civil planner. And I'd be like, oh, what a fucking loser. Where now I want to know everything about how do you do this? Like, well, let me know more. You know, how can I get you to name a street after me?
And sort of like, you know, like all three of us have worked in street shops before, and like, well, Conspiracy is still a street shop, but you know, you guys are booked out as fuck, so it's harder to do some walk-ins when you're just booked out.
It is.
Yeah, so it's sort of like, you know, we're all in that sort of scenario now where we don't get that many walk-in tattoos as what we used to. But you know, when you haven't done one in ages, and you know, like super lucky, like I'm sure you guys are the same, where it's like you spend most of your days tattooing really fun shit on really epic dudes, like and chicks and stuff, and it's like you feel really lucky to have gotten to that point where you're doing the stuff that you wanted your whole career to do. And you kind of miss the crazy, you know. You're like, oh, I don't have as many good stories as I used to, you know. And you sort of, I think, Dan, I came back to Wagga one time and I wanted one day to just be walk-ins, because I'm like, I miss the Roman numerals, I miss the infinity symbols, I miss the crazy shit. And then I just had some people book in Flash anyway, like come in and just pick Flash anyway. I'm like, oh, okay.
I think I'm trying to remember.
You take it for granted.
Totally. Like I was talking to someone the other night about, like, you know, like tattooers, some, not in general, but some tattooers might diss small Roman numerals, really nice script lettering, infinity symbols, the birds, the, you know, the little thing blowing, whatever, daffodil, whatever it's called, dandelion. They're actually incredibly hard technical tattoos to do, and there's really no room for error. And that,
And
that is where
the cruel twist of fate is that they go to the apprentice as well. All
I
those
know,
super
I
hard
know.
tattoos are the ones that go to the person with the least experience because they're small,
Yeah.
you know, stuff like that. But they're the hardest ones with the least
Yeah.
margin for error. You know,
They're the
you've been thrown
ones
in the deep
where,
end.
yeah, they're the ones I think where you can actually really show your skill. Like if you can nail one of those flawlessly, that is better than, like, you know, no disrespect to either of you guys or to me, like there's far more skill in that than nailing, for me, a koi fish, Dan, you, like an ornamental piece, or MJ, like a trad sailing ship. There's way more room for error in all of that stuff and artistic interpretation.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But that
And you can,
stuff,
there's
man,
room
nowhere
to hide in stuff like that because there's so much else. But a little thing, that's all it is. I still do that sort of stuff almost, you know, every few days. I'm still doing something tiny, and you know, I still enjoy doing that. I really do.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you know, I've also found, like, doing small stuff like that, you know, doing a paw print on some 50-year-old woman, it's her first tattoo, all that sort of stuff, they're also way more appreciative and grateful and stoked and tell 20 of their mates, as opposed to the cool dude 18-year-old that came in and got a panther on his forearm, you know, like they might be stoked, and I love doing it, but it's like, it's really satisfying knowing that you've made someone's day, you know, doing stuff like that. So it's like, it's really fulfilling.
And they're generally your biggest champions. They're your you know, they get you at all. Like, you know, paw prints, man, I've done so many paw prints over the years. I think when I was in London, there was some American female rap artist who had 2 paw prints here. Bang.
Oh, yeah, the
off and running.
Neck, my back, my pussy,
and then
my
I
crack.
think it was Nicole Richie got the rosary beads around her ankle and the cross, and then that's the next one. And then David Beckham got the wings and the, you know, all
that
this
was
stuff.
big for a while,
yeah, it's great. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that all those little tattoos are just as important as the massive ones too, you know? Yeah, they all mean the same amount to those people, you know?
Exactly.
Whether it's something huge on someone that's had a lot, or that's their first tattoo, they all mean the same amount of, like, the same amount of importance to that person, I suppose.
Totally. Mate, I remember in London, I think I was 23, I got slaughtered by this chick, right? Fucking destroyed me, right? I'm a little Aussie backpacker, right, in this little street shop, and she's asked for something, and then she was actually pretty hot and a couple of years older, and I think I fucking giggled or smirked to, like, my offsider, and she just goes to me, "Did you just laugh at what I'm trying to get?" And I went, "Oh, no, I didn't." She went, yeah, you did. And, like, full grilled me, man, and went, "Have a look at you. Look at you. You're a little Aussie backpacker, mate. Like, look at those shit shoes. Look, what even are those pants? Like, what is that top?" And then she's like, "Let me guess, you go to the Red Back in the church, and you go to Sunnyside Up, and, you know, you come to England, you had your first pill, and you think you're cool, and all this and all that." Like, full tore me a new one, mate. And she's gone, "I came here because this is a good shop in a trendy era. Your job is to fucking give me a good tattoo, not give me fashion advice, because obviously you've got none." You know? Like, ripped it.
Brutal.
And then I actually got on with her really well, and had a great and she ended up, like, used to bring people to the shop because we had that banter and all the rest of it. And that taught me something pretty special. It was like, you know what, my job is to be a professional and to do it to the best of my ability, and to not judge, you know.
Exactly.
So
I learned that early on too.
It was
about
great.
The not judging part, like, because I thought, well, if I'm judging people about the tattoo that they want to get, I'm no better than those people that are judging people for having tattoos. You know, like, there's no difference. So it's not my choice it's not my place to judge people for the things that they like. That's their prerogative. You know, they get what they want, and that's fine. It's not my place to tell them what they should have and what's cool, because to them, it's, you know, that's what they want. It's not me. Yeah.
And we're all about, you know, inclusiveness, like empowerment and all this sort of stuff. And that's the fact, you know. But that was a great life lesson for me. Yeah. You know, it was I got done big time. It was epic. Yeah. One of the best things that happened to me early in my career So yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Reese, has there ever been a time when I'm back? That was the longest piss ever.
Yeah.
I swear to God. Has there ever been a time, Reese, when you've been tattooing and you've genuinely been scared of someone that you're tattooing? Like, has there been a moment? Because it's like this weird thing where it's sort of like when you're tattooing someone, there is a power dynamic.
Early in the Melbourne piece, right, working in a shop in Brunswick, and I used to do, again, like 3 in the Arvo into the nighttime, right? And I was like maybe 19 or 20. And, you know, we were up the stairs from a Club X adult bookshop. Like, you know, Brunswick wasn't gentrified like it is now. It was like a bad area.
Not all
and this
right
guy
stores
come
and
in,
op shops.
Yeah, this mad skinhead come in, and he already had 1 teardrop here. And it's the only time I've done, you know, like face tattoos that I can remember. And he wanted me to refreshen it. And he had, like, back in the day, no one had neck tattoos back then. He had a fucking bull terrier on his neck and a skull over here. And I was like, he was probably 5 years older than me, mate, early 20s, something like that. So I redid the teardrop, and then he wanted me to do a couple more. And I brought him down to here, and I'm like, I'm not really comfortable with this. But then he wanted me to, like, put a white highlight in them so it looked like they were glistening, right? And then he's gone, oh, all right, look in the mirror, and I'm like, why am I here alone? And, you know, that was probably the rock and stomper era, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh, I think I want some more on this side. And I so didn't want to do it. And I remember just saying to him, oh, look, in all honesty, like, probably went, in all honesty, I think you're going to look like a crybaby. You know? And he just went, good point. So I didn't do it, right? And then, like, you know, how do you bandage something like that? You just dab it. Oh, here you go. Here's a bit of paper towel. Off you go. And then he come back into the shop maybe a month later, and he had foundation all over it. And I'm like, here we go. Like, all right, what do I say here? And he was an awkward person, you know, and I had that menacing sort of thing. I'm thinking, here we go. I'm going to get bashed tonight, right? But then he actually asked me to do like a big belly rocker in Old English across his belly. And that whole time, it would have been like a 4-hour job. No one mentioned the face tattoo. It was just not spoken about. And then I would see him on and off over the years, and he would show them, he wouldn't show them, he would show 1, he would show 2, depending, I guess, on his emotional state.
Yeah,
you know?
Or if he had a house inspection that day or something.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah. But I ended up finding out later on, he was actually back in that era, like graphic designers weren't that common as they are now. So, you know, but I found out later on that he was quite a successful, you know, graphic designer, maybe for some underground sort of publications.
Maybe.
Yeah, we just want to chuck a Swazi on this. Do you reckon you can bust open Photoshop and chuck a couple of Swazis on it?
But yeah, mate, you know, I've been in shops where in the past, you know, that stuff's been done, and I've been asked to do it, and you're like, no, and it was definitely a different era.
That's got one of our best shop reviews from one of those.
There was no Google review back then, and you know, like, no one came into a tattoo shop and complained.
Dan, no. Can you remember? You obviously do. You just sort of alluded to it. The time where you got a 1-star review for not doing a Nazi tattoo.
The best 1-star review I've ever had, because this lady wanted this eagle, like the Nazi eagle, you know. So she emailed us, and I was like, oh, fuck, you know, well, what am I going to say to this woman? I don't want to do this shit. So anyway, I'd sort of put it off getting back to her, and she called the shop, and she's like, oh, I've emailed you, you know, blah, blah. And I said, oh, what was it? And she said, oh, it's an eagle. I went, oh, yeah, rightio. No worries. Well, let me have a look at it, and I'll get back to you. So thinking, fuck, I don't know what to tell this woman, you know. So anyway, a couple of days later, she's called back, and she said, oh, I haven't heard back from you. And I didn't recognize her voice again. I'm like, oh, what was it? And she said, oh, it was the eagle. I said, oh, yeah, look, we're not going to do that. And she'd already said, oh, I've had a couple of shops that, you know, won't do it. Will you do it? And I've just gone, oh no, we won't do that. And she's gone,
Yeah.
ugh, another one. And I'm like, yeah, sorry.
Hello.
So she's
There's
just
a
up.
theme going along here.
Yeah. So a couple of days later, we get this 1-star review, and I'm like, what the fuck's this? And I've gone on there, and she's like, oh yeah, they refused to do my tattoo and all this. And, you know, she didn't say what it was or anything. And she was just saying that, yeah, they're shit because they wouldn't do it and all this. So I'm like, oh, look, I won't out her for what she wanted to get. But I got on there and I just said, look, you know, we don't do hands and necks and faces and all, you know, made it as diplomatic as I could without actually saying she wanted. Yeah, exactly. And then, so she came back at me and said, oh, what I wanted wasn't offensive and all this stuff. And I just went, all right. I think Dan just went into Nazi tattoos are offensive. I just fucking just crucified her and then just went, all right, leave it to the internet. And then everyone just fucking just went to town. She ended up deleting it because everyone was just drilling her. And I was like, yeah, well, that's fair enough. You got what you deserve.
Dan, I remember that people would come in and they were like, I was tossing up where to get my tattoo. And I saw that 1-star review and stuff. And I'm like, this shop has ethics. I'm going to go here. These seem like good people. Like, I feel like that. Yeah,
it was definitely
that
the best 1-star review I've ever had.
More business than any 5-star review we'd ever had.
Yeah.
Way more notice. Like, everyone was on our side. It was the best negative thing that could ever happen.
Yeah, totally. And that's the thing. Like, I think if any shop has got full 5-star review, there's something sus. You know, for me, my shop's got 1, 2, 3, 4 stars, and I'm like, that's okay. That's all right. Yeah. And I just like to think of the fact that whoever's going to actually, that isn't aware of the shop and they want to look into it and they're then going to spend that much time to check out the Google reviews, I really hope they click on the minimal star reviews, but then also have the intelligence level to gauge the comments and what the person's going on about.
They definitely will.
And I don't even engage with them. It's like, what for? You know, like,
normally I don't either.
Yeah, but like that one,
on that occasion, I felt the need.
100%, you have to.
There was one time. Oh, sorry. There was one time, and I'm fully gonna own it. I got a fully deserved 1-star review when I worked at Conspiracy.
Is that why you moved to Melbourne?
Yes,
100%. I was on holidays down on the south coast, and it was like my first day of my holiday. I was away for like a week or so, and I get a text message from Dan, and it was just a screenshot of this 1-star review that was on Facebook or Google or something.
What a great boss! First day of holidays.
Dwell on this. My week. And
just take some time to think about it.
Yeah, and it was justified. You know?
It was harsh.
But the thing was, this lady left the review 2 years after I did the tattoo.
So it was a slow burn.
I was an apprentice. I was new to it. Dan had booked me in a tattoo but he's like, you know, I'll book it in with you, you know, and I wasn't ready for, technically, you know, there was elements, you know, it was like a map of Australia with the flag of Australia inside of it, and people listening might not realize that sounds pretty simple, but
mate, to get a deep blue solid, let alone all of those stars, is really hard.
Deep blue
and it
solid
wasn't real big either.
Yeah, you got to use a mag, you got to use a round shader, you got to use a whole lot.
All that sort of stuff, and I had a banner with writing in it as well. So the whole thing, it was like, I wasn't technically ready for it. I was like, all right, if Dan's booked it in, you know, I'll do it. You know, he obviously believes in me enough to do it, and I fucked it. It was not good. And as I was doing it, you know, I was pissing sweat, just going, this is going from bad to worse.
That's always a great moment. The sweat starts coming out. It's like, oh God.
Ears are burning.
In the mirror. Yeah. She was stoked. She seemed happy with it. And all right, cool, wrapped up. Off she went. 2 years later, she left this review. I was feeling really good about myself. And I read it. and I was gutted straight away. And I was just like, this is what I needed. It's not what I wanted. But Dan, as a fucking friend and as a boss, went into damage control and, you know, messaged her, and he's like, what can I do? What can I do to make this better? All that sort of stuff. And she'd moved to a different state, all that sort of stuff. But, you know, it's sort of like, I feel like the 5-star reviews are nice, but the 1-star reviews are necessary.
100%. It's a big learning thing.
You learn from those.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Fuck my
week. I think my nemesis tattoo that I refused to tattoo anymore because I fucked it up so much was the 3 lions. Like living in England for 5 years and being back there, you know, I've done that many Euros and World Cups, and, you know, every 2 years, fucking these cunts come in and they want it this big in blue and red. I've done that many shit claws and like horrible. I refused to do it now. In the end, even when I was over there, I went, I can't do it. Like, I'm just going to fuck it up. Like, I'm just doing it for money. And I don't want it.
Reece, I remember first time you and Emma were like driving through Wagga or something, and you came into the shop. Yeah, I think I had something booked later that arvo, but I wasn't doing anything that morning. And you're like, "What do you have on today?" And I said, "I've got 2 family crests, identical or whatever." Like, man, like that's going to be fucking sick. You know, you've got a father and son getting their family crest. That's going to be an epic photo of like father and son together with the same tattoo or something like that. And it was just that outlook, and I'm like, oh man, I'm a little cunt, aren't I? You know, like I was like, oh, if it's not a pants,
but yeah,
I don't want to do it.
Family. But they were a big thing for years. Family crests as well. They're not so common anymore.
Huge.
No, they've dropped off a bit, but yeah, they were massive for a while.
Yeah, they were like, you know, and yeah, I think even the fucking supermarkets used to have pop-up stores with the family crest company in there.
Yeah, they did.
But it was just a huge shift in perspective, you know, and like Dan was massive in shifting my perspective on all sorts of stuff, you know, like the tribal and the infinity symbols, all that sort of stuff. And Dan was massive in telling me as well, it might not be the coolest thing to do or whatever, but they're going to be stoked, and it's like epic
100%.
Practice, you know, and it's going to benefit you in the long run by doing it. So, and it was like,
100%. Like
obviously you someone that I idolized, and it was like coming in and your outlook on it wasn't, oh, that sucks that you've got 2 family crests. Like your outlook was, that's going to be fucking sick, man.
Like
you can get a photo of the father and son.
Totally, but also as well, like that's for your technical prowess to really shine. Like 2 things,
that's
like
you
know, old skin, young skin. One's going to sit good, one's going to sit bad. You got to like nail it, but also what an amazing gift that you can give that father and son.
Exactly.
You know? Yeah, absolutely.
I remember years ago when I'd already been tattooing. My old man goes, "No, I think I."
Sorry, like when you're young, you don't think of it like that. Yeah, when you're young, you don't think of it like that. You're like, I just want to be doing the cool shit. You don't think of it in terms of that, you know? Sorry.
Like I remember, I think I'd been tattooing about 10 years, and my old man's like, oh, I should probably get a tattoo off you. So I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, cool. Like he was right into scuba diving and all that. He was a PADI instructor for 20 odd years. And I remember thinking, oh, how mad, he's going to ask me for like a hard hat or a diver or something. And he's like, oh, how about you do a butterfly on my hip, son? I'm like, fuck no. No, mate, it's not happening.
My mum is watching. My mum is watching right now, I'm pretty sure. And I got her to tattoo me at Conspiracy when I was an apprentice. Hey, Robin. And,
you put up something recently of your dad tattooing you as well.
Yeah, my dad tattooed me as well. And that was after my mum just took one for the team, and I got her to tattoo me. And because they lived like an hour and a half away, so they'd visit every now and then. And she came in and she's like, well, I think it's time that you do one on me, you know, as payback. So I did a butterfly on her wrist as well. But if my dad told me to do a butterfly, I'd probably tell him to get fucked as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think butterflies are the one because quite a few years ago, my partner Emma, like her mum was over from England, and you know I've done a 3/4 sleeve on my partner. So Emma's mum's gone, oh, Liz is like, oh, I want to get a tattoo. I'm like, oh, really? No way. Yeah, but so I ended up doing a butterfly on her as well. So there you go.
First one.
They're making a big comeback too at the moment. They're massive again.
Oh, they should be. They're such a beautiful
The
creature.
classic. Yeah, classic tattoo.
And that's
That's
the
it,
thing
yeah,
with tattooing, as much as it goes through cycles. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. I think a lot of the classics just remain the same, but they're just slightly reinvented.
Definitely.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I remember at Conspiracy, we had in the waiting room this sort of rack. It's probably still there. A rack with a whole bunch of flash sheets.
I don't change anything.
And Dan, like, when he took over the shop from Brian, you know, went out of his way and he bought a whole bunch of like epic flash sheets from like Johan Ingemar that's at Lighthouse and stuff, you know, like
Lighthouse
stuff, like really cool like trad sort of stuff. But there were still a few Cherry Creek sheets in there from when Brian owned Conspiracy. And someone would be flicking through, man. They'd go past the Parry Corbett. They'd go past the Johans. They'd go past all this Mike Chambers flash, all this sort of stuff. And then they'd see the Cherry Creek man, and they'd see the tribal with the little butterfly and the tiger and all that sort of stuff. And they're like, this, I want this. I was like, fuck, man.
The crazy thing is, like, when I was at 100%, when I was at Skin Effects, we had like 2 big walls of flash racks, right? Like I think there were like 6 or 8 drop down on each one, right? It would have been hundreds of sheets there, but there used to be things like on every sheet had the butterfly, the frangipani, the dolphin that just resonated with people for some weird reason. They were just drawn to it more than others, and it could have been, there was no common denominator. They could have been rich or poor, young or old, but artistically they were like drawn to this composition. And yeah, that was the one.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
I didn't get to do too many dolphins.
Yeah, mate, you can, I got one on my hip, but yeah.
Just away from the ocean. I missed the whole dolphin thing, but I did a couple, but yeah.
I can't.
Get the dolphin out, Reese.
I can't.
That's it.
But Dan, someone mentioned before, like we should get Dan and UMJ up together at Sydney one time for a guest spot for a weekend when the world reopens.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Or not the world, sorry. Australia reopens.
Well,
I've tattooed it. How many times have I tattooed?
I feel bad. I'm the only one working at the moment.
Quite a few over the years. I keep trying to get you to get your license and come here full time, but I'm just hoping maybe by the 10th lockdown in Melbourne you'll have had enough.
Like I've tattooed at Little Tokyo.
I've got to get a license too.
A lot.
Mate, you don't. Don't worry about it. No one's listening. We'll just sneak you in the back room, mate. You'll be sweet.
I've actually applied for one in January and still don't have it yet.
Well, the way I would look at it, technically you've been approved. It's just a backlog of paperwork.
Yeah.
But that being said, like every time I've had the chance to tattoo at Little Tokyo, before, like, I'll start this sentence again. What a fucking car crash. Every time I've tattooed at Little Tokyo, it was sort of like the first place I ever worked where it was tranquil and it was relaxing and it was like an oasis. You know, you go in that sketchy building across from Central Station, you go up the fucking elevator, you think you're going to die in, and then you get to Little Tokyo and the doors open and it's this oasis. You know, it's just, there's so much stuff and it's relaxing and it's beautiful and there's like everyone's evenly spaced. You got plenty of room and it's like a genuinely relaxing experience, and that is the most sort of like I'd worked in shop, you know, street shop like Conspiracy where we're pretty close together when we're working and stuff, and then I worked at Man's Ruin where it was like very compact and it was in St Kilda and it was chaos and it was fun but it was chaos and all that sort of stuff. And Little Tokyo was that first place where I was like, holy shit, this is almost like Nirvana for tattooing, you know? And it was any chance I get to come back, I definitely will.
It's a nice
Amazing.
space.
No, thank you. They're really nice, kind words. And like, you know, I've paid my Feng Shui consult a hell of a lot of money over the years to get that aesthetic. We're just on the cusp of installing a water feature when you enter through the
Beautiful.
doors.
Everyone will be racing to the toilet every 5 minutes.
Oh, I didn't think of that. Maybe I can get like, maybe I
careful.
can muffle the dripping sound.
Yeah,
Maybe I need to get, maybe I should just have like, maybe like a butterfly farm in there instead of the water feature.
No, you know those little, like the like the incense thing, but the smoke goes down the little mountain. Yeah, one of those.
The spinning ball. Yeah.
Yeah, anything like that. That'd be sick.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Hey guys, all right, we've done a good hour and a half.
We've done a bit.
We could talk on forever, but let's come back and do this again.
Yeah.
But whoever's still out there listening, again, like tomorrow night, we've got the Apprentice Edition. So MJ's going to be involved. And mate, Dan, if you got nothing on, maybe we should get you in as well for a brief little cameo.
So what's going on?
Apprentice and Sensei.
So, yeah, the Apprentice Edition. And basically it's going to be just a culmination of a bunch of different Sydney tattooers that, like I've got Joe Kins, who taught a guy called Danny Truong to tattoo, who now one of Danny's apprentices. So we're going to get the full spectrum of stuff, like myself, an unconventional apprenticeship. I've got Todd Bailey, who's apprenticing people now. Gummy Johnson is as well. We're going to get Cole Dawson that works with me. He was pretty much thrown in the deep end and owned a shop really young. But the main sort of thing is the overall thing. Yeah, lots of different stuff, but I won't give it all away. But you got to watch it tomorrow. But yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, all right. Thanks so much, guys. Do you guys got any parting words?
Thank you, Dan, for doing this. I know that it's out of your comfort zone, and
it is a little.
I've sort of twisted your arm many times out of your comfort zone, but I'm grateful to have done this with you and with Reese as well. Two of the biggest influences I've ever had. So I really had a lot of fun.
Let's not forget Brian.
Definitely, Brian.
Yeah.
No, I just want to say thanks to, you know, both of you guys, but also Reese for, you know, doing all these things. They're really good. I've fallen a bit behind. I've got a few to catch up on, but every single one of them I've enjoyed thoroughly. So yeah, thanks a lot for just putting the time in and doing it, mate.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm very, you know, fortunate to be in a position to do this sort of stuff, and it's fun. It's informative. It gives a real cool perspective. And let's be realistic. Once we go back to some sort of normality, I'm not going to be able to keep this pace up. At best, I'll be able to do one a week, you know, at best. So I think it's kind of a nice snapshot. You know, we're all in this together, supposedly, but as tattooers we are. So we can, it's just a nice thing. And, you know, but not only just for us, but for all our clients and then peripheral people that are on the offshoots of that as well. So it's really cool. So,
well, even as Michael said earlier, you know, just putting a face to names that you know, like I know of a lot of those people, but I've never met them or never even seen them. So it's nice you get that different perspective. So
and realistically, we're in and we're coming into an age now where we're building thoughts on people and impressions of people of how they are online, or whether it's their Instagram or something like this as well. But this is a nice one because, you know, this is the real thing. So whether people come and see us in the shop or maybe at a convention, they've kind of already got a nice feeling. Oh, maybe, you know, those dudes are pretty cool, or they seem pretty chilled, and we want to have a nice talk and a laugh and all that. So I think it's a good thing all round.
100%. Yep.
Cool. All right, guys. Love you all.
Okay.
Thanks for everyone that watched. Tomorrow night, the Apprentice Edition, 8 p.m. Be there or be square.
Yep.
Cheers, Reese. Cheers.
Good night.